It's like realizing that someone else's disapproval isn't a signal that you're doing something wrong. It's just a signal that you aren't their specific flavor of person.
Well, if you have to be someone you're not in order for people to like you, is that any better?
Not even close. Hey there.
Have you ever noticed yourself acting differently depending on who you're around? Or stayed quiet when you wanted to speak, laughed at something you didn't find funny, or agreed with an opinion you didn't actually share? Or have you ever looked back at a conversation and realized you weren't really being yourself? If so, you're not alone. Most of us wear different masks in different situations. We change how we speak, what we say, what we reveal, and sometimes even who we appear to be. Today, we're going to look at 7 ways to become more authentic by gradually letting go of the performances that have been hiding who you really are.
I'm ready when you are. Lay the first one on me.
1. Notice when you're pretending. Most people don't pretend all the time. They do it in certain situations. Maybe you become quieter around confident people, laugh at jokes you don't find funny, hide your interests, or agree with opinions you don't actually share. The first step toward authenticity is simply recognizing when you start changing yourself to fit the people around you. Don't judge yourself when you notice it. Just become curious. Every time you recognize that you've slipped into a performance, you become more aware of the difference between the person you're presenting and the person you really are. You can't make a different choice until you realize you're making one.
That gap is where everything starts. It's almost like a glitch in the matrix where you suddenly see the wires. I wonder if the hardest part is actually the not judging bit, because usually when we catch ourselves pretending, the first thing we do is feel fake. Do you think that guilt is what keeps most people from ever actually noticing the mask?
What do you mean by guilt?
You know, that feeling that you're being dishonest or fake by just trying to fit in? Like if you catch yourself laughing at a joke that isn't funny, there's often this little internal voice that says, "Why are you doing that? You're just pretending." I'm wondering if that feeling is so uncomfortable that people just subconsciously block out the realization entirely to avoid feeling like a fraud.
I think the fear of feeling like an outcast is stronger than the fear of feeling like a fraud.
That's a fair point. The fear of isolation usually wins. It's easier to live with a bit of internal friction than to face the silence of being the only person in the room not laughing. It's basically a survival instinct, right?
Exactly. Are you ready for the next method?
I'm ready. Let's keep this momentum going.
2. Ask yourself what you're trying to protect or gain. Whenever you find yourself pretending, ask a simple question. What am I hoping will happen if I act this way? Often the answer has less to do with the situation than with something you're trying to gain or avoid. You may be hoping to be accepted, respected, loved, included, or simply avoid rejection or conflict. Once you understand what the performance is trying to accomplish, it starts to make sense. Instead of seeing yourself as fake or weak, you begin to recognize that you're trying to meet a need. That understanding makes it much easier to decide whether the performance is still serving you.
It turns the behavior into a symptom rather than the problem. It's like looking at a shield. You don't get mad at the shield for being in the way. You ask what the person is actually afraid of. I wonder, though, is there a danger of using this need as an excuse to stay in the performance? Like, I'm just doing this to be loved, and then never actually taking the risk to be seen?
Yeah, I think you'd have to ask an even deeper question.
Like what? Like guessing something along the lines of, is the love I'm getting actually for me or just for the mask? Because if it's just for the performance, then you're still fundamentally alone in the room, right?
Yeah, I think that's what I was trying to say, yeah.
It's a brutal realization, but it's the only way out. That's the paradox of the mask. It gives you the connection you're craving, but it's actually the thing blocking the genuine version of it. I'm ready for number 3 whenever you are.
3. Remember that what you do isn't who you are. It's easy to confuse your job, your achievements, your relationships, or the roles you play with your identity. You stop thinking of them as parts of your life and begin believing they define who you are. When that happens, protecting those roles can become more important than being yourself. The more you remember that roles are things you perform rather than who you are, the less pressure you'll feel to constantly maintain a certain image. You can succeed, fail, change careers, become a parent, retire, or take on new responsibilities without feeling like you've lost yourself.
It's like the difference between owning a tool and being the tool. If you think you are the role, then any criticism of your work or your performance feels like a direct attack on your soul. But when you separate them, you can just say, yeah, I messed up that report without feeling like you're a failure as a human being. I'm curious though, do you think some roles are just harder to separate from than others? Like, is it easier to detach from a job than it is to detach from being a parent?
I would guess it depends on how much you identify with it, how much of that role is who you are.
Right, the level of fusion. If you've built your entire self-worth around being the provider or the perfect parent, that role isn't just a tool anymore, it's the whole house. That role cracks feels like the whole structure is coming down. I imagine that's where the real danger of identity collapse comes in, isn't it? When the mask and the face have just merged.
Here's the fourth method.
4. Spend more time where you can be yourself. Think about the people who make you feel like you have to watch every word you say. Then think about the people around whom you can finally relax. Those relationships often reveal where you feel accepted without needing to constantly manage how you're seen. Spending more time with people who allow you to be yourself doesn't instantly solve everything, but it reminds you what authenticity actually feels like. The more often you experience relationships that don't require a performance, the easier it becomes to carry that same honesty into other areas of your life.
It's like a home base for the soul. If you spend your whole life in high pressure environments, you start to think that the performance is just who you are. These safe spaces are the only places where you can actually remember your own frequency. I wonder, though, for some people, is there a risk of becoming too comfortable in those safe zones and then finding it even harder to be authentic in the real world?
I think you have to find places where you can practice being authentic. If you're constantly on guard, then you'll never feel safe enough to actually be authentic. And if you can practice being authentic, I think it becomes easier over time.
Exactly. It's like training wheels. You can't just jump into the deep end of total vulnerability in a high stakes environment without some reps first. You have to find those low risk spaces where you can test the waters, say the thing you're thinking, and realize the world doesn't actually end when you do. Ready for number 5?
5. Practice saying what you really think. Authenticity usually grows through small moments rather than dramatic ones. You admit what you actually want for dinner, express an opinion that differs from the group, tell someone you don't know the answer, or politely say no when you really don't want to do something. These moments may seem insignificant, but they teach you that honesty is something you practice, not something you suddenly become. Every time you express a genuine thought, preference, or feeling, you're strengthening the habit of showing up as yourself.
It's the compound effect of honesty. If you only aim for the big truths, you're just swapping one performance for another, the brave performance. But when you start with the small stuff, like the restaurant choice, you're actually rewiring your nervous system to realize that being seen is safe. It turns authenticity into a skill rather than a leap of faith. I'm ready for 6.
6. Accept that not everyone will approve of you. Many people spend years trying to make sure everyone likes them. They avoid disagreement, soften their opinions, apologize when they don't need to, or constantly adjust themselves to keep other people comfortable. Over time, they can lose touch with what they actually believe or want. Authenticity requires accepting that some people won't understand you, agree with you, or approve of your choices. That isn't a sign you've done something wrong. It's simply part of living honestly instead of trying to become whoever each person wants you to be.
That's the ultimate power move, honestly. It's like realizing that someone else's disapproval isn't a signal that you're doing something wrong. It's just a signal that you aren't their specific flavor of person. I wonder if there's a weird kind of loneliness that comes with that, though. Like, you're more authentic, but you're also okay with the fact that some people are just going to walk away because of it. Do you think that's a price people are actually willing to pay?
Well, if you have to be someone you're not in order for people to like you, is that is that any better?
Not even close. That's just a different kind of loneliness, and it's way heavier. Being liked for a version of yourself that doesn't actually exist is like being a ghost in your own life. You're there, but you're not actually being seen. I'd take the risk of being disliked as my real self over the hollow feeling of being loved for a mask any day.
Someone once said that every time you lie to yourself, you lose a piece of yourself.
That's a heavy thought, but it's true. It's like a slow erosion. You aren't just lying to the world. You're training yourself to stop trusting your own internal compass. Eventually, you look in the mirror and you don't even recognize the person looking back because you've traded too many pieces of yourself for a sense of safety. I'm ready for the final one, whenever you are.
7. Let your values, not other people's expectations, guide your life. Life constantly presents moments where you can either follow the crowd or follow what matters most to you. Sometimes those paths are the same, but often they aren't. The decisions you make in those moments gradually shape the person you become. Being authentic doesn't mean refusing to adapt or ignoring other people. It means making sure your choices are guided by what you genuinely believe is important instead of being driven primarily by other people's expectations. When your actions consistently reflect your own values, your life begins to feel more like your own.
That's the perfect place to end it. Turns the whole game around. Instead of asking, how do I fit in? You're asking, does this actually fit me? It's the difference between being a reflection of your surroundings and actually being the light.
In closing, authenticity isn't about becoming someone new. It's about gradually letting go of the performances you've learned to navigate life with, so you can express more of who you already are. If you'd like to understand why we wear masks, why we become different people in different environments, and how our relationships gradually shape who we become, I recommend watching the Relational Construction series. You'll find a link in the description below. Maya, before we end things here, do you have any comments or questions for the audience?
I'd want to ask the audience, if you stopped performing for just 1 hour today, who is the first person you'd be afraid to be honest with? And what is the one thing you're actually dying to tell them?
Thank you, Maya. I think we'll end that here.
You're very welcome.
Take care.
You too. Catch you later.